Reason just really pissed me off. Like, honestly, if Reason would have died, I wouldn't have cared. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's been a little while since my last book video. However, I am back from Scotland. I'm refreshed, I'm ready to go. And if you're asking me if Scotland was amazing, it was. I have some vlogs coming if you want to see my life outside of Booktube. Stay tuned, the vlogs will come. It's just going to take me a long time to edit all of that footage. So today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in September, and by all of the books I mean literally 2 books. However, I am going to mention the one book that I got halfway through in September because I did start reading another book when I was in Scotland. However, I just didn't finish it in September. I want to finish it tonight. So I'm going to mention it anyway because I kind of have a grasp of how I feel of it. So without further ado, here are all the books that I read in September. So the first book that I read, I'm not too sure that I started this in September. I'm pretty sure that I started it at the end of August and then I finished it the first week of September because my goal was to finish this book before I went to Scotland, and that book is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas. If we're talking technicalities, this is the 5th book in the ACOTAR series. I don't know if I would count it as part of it because I feel like, to me, ACOTAR is literally the main 3 first books, and then you have that little novella which I don't even like thinking about because it was the most pointless book in existence, and I feel like this is just a whole new storyline, so I don't really feel like it counts. I feel like it's kind of its own series, but I'm calling it the ACOTAR series anyway because it does involve the same characters. So obviously the first 3 books in the series all are told from Feyre's perspective, however this book is told from Nesta's perspective. Nesta is Feyre's older sister. She is the oldest of the 3 sisters because you have Nesta, Feyre and Elaine, and Nesta is the oldest. Now in the first 3 ACOTAR books, Nesta is not portrayed as the nicest character. She is very self-centered, selfish and just really horrible to everyone she comes into contact with. There is not a nice bone in that woman's body. She's kind of the sister that made Feyre go out and hunt for her family. Nesta did not lift a finger in that respect, and she just was not likeable in any way, shape or form. So this book takes place after the events of ACOTAR. I can't specifically remember how long it is in between the ACOTAR books and this book. I want to say that between the ACOTAR books and this book there's like a year gap, but I can't actually remember, so don't shoot me for saying the wrong thing. Now my overall feelings on this book was I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would because I hated Nesta when I read ACOTAR. Now I read ACOTAR as the books released years ago, but I still remember to this day that I hated Nesta. I just could not stand her. There was just no character development there. She was just awful. Just awful. She was horrible, just horrible in every way, shape or form. I went into this book with a clear head because I didn't really want to think about my feelings about Nesta from the previous books because I did not have anything good to say about her, and I actually weirdly found myself liking her a little bit more in this book. I kind of understood her character a little bit more, and I understood where she was coming from as well because we kind of see that she's horrible but we don't really see why she's been that way. Do I think it's an excuse? Absolutely not. I don't think that she should have acted the way that she did. However, I do understand her reasoning for it. Call me a bad person for saying that, I don't care, but that's just how I feel. Now what I will say about this book is the whole way through, although I enjoyed it because I just find Sarah J Maas's writing really easy to get into. I love her world building, I love reading about her characters, and although I did love that aspect of it because obviously I just fell into old habits and I found myself just really enjoying what I was reading, I did think the whole way through when I was reading this, there's not really much going on, and honestly, not a lot happens. Is it better than the novella? Absolutely. The novella was awful, but this, there was little tidbits going on, but I honestly just feel like this was more for the build-up that's to come because there are some crazy things coming. For anyone who's read any Sarah J Maas books recently, you might know that shit is quite literally gonna hit the fan, and I'm so excited for it. So I just feel like this was the build-up for it. So I'm not going to complain about it, but that was just how I felt the whole way through reading this. I just felt like most of it was just Nesta training, or Nesta dealing with her feelings, or it was Cassian and Nesta trying not to fall in love with each other. So not a lot happens. There were a couple of kind of action parts which I enjoyed, but for the most part this was just kind of a okay, not much is happening, but it's enjoyable read. I also would like to say, and this was my most disappointing thing about this book, was the fact that I found myself really hating Reasoned. Now, when I read the Akatar series, I don't remember hating him apart from in the first book, because obviously no one really knew what his endgame was, no one really knew about his character, so I hated him then. But I despised him in this book. He was awful. I almost feel like his character was unlikable just for Nesta's benefit. Like, I don't remember him being like this up until this book. Now, I don't want to spoil it, but there was a part in this book where it almost felt like Reasoned had no sympathy for Nesta. And I'm not being funny, but when I read about, you know, him in A Court of Mist and Fury, we kind of learn about his trauma and all of that stuff, and I was kind of like, as someone with as much trauma as he has, and as someone who kind of understands that, and also let me add, in this book previous to this scene that I'm talking about, he kind of gets a glimpse into Nesta's trauma, and he's like, oh my god, it's so wild, I've never seen anything like this. I would have thought that he would have been a bit more sympathetic, but no, he was just like, I fucking hate this girl, fucking kill her. Like, that was his whole mindset. And I was just like, as someone who has gone through stuff, you would think that he would have more sympathy there, but no, he was just like, oh my god, kill Nesta, don't like Nesta. Like, bro, come on. And he was just so unlikable. He was just so controlling, and everything was about me, me, me. And I know, like, Nesta is like that anyway, but like, oh, Reasoned just really pissed me off. Like, honestly, if Reasoned would have died, I wouldn't have cared. But anyway, those were my thoughts and feelings on this. I did really enjoy it, however those were kind of my gripes on it. I would like to say that in the next couple of books I would like to see more about Asriel, and I'm really excited to see kind of how Asriel's relationship develops with certain characters. I also really enjoyed Nesta's friends that she made in this book. I can't remember their names because I'm fucking dumb and I read this a little while ago now and I do not remember details, but I want to see more about Asriel because I feel like in every single Akatar book he's been portrayed as this really mysterious guy and we know nothing about him or where he came from or his story, and I want to know that stuff. I'm interested. So the second and also last book that I finished in September, this is going to be the shortest video in existence, was I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I'll put a picture either side here because I read it on my Kindle. I finished this whilst I was in Scotland. I think I started it before I went, and this has been one of my anticipated reads for the year. Ever since I found out the title of this book, I was really intrigued to read it. I feel like for the title alone, it was really intriguing. Obviously, it has that shock value. A lot of people have this perception that if someone's a family member, you should respect them and you should love them, and so I feel like that title was really shocking and almost offensive to some people, but honestly, I get it. I get why she made that title. Now this is basically a non-fiction book and it basically follows her life just before she starts acting all the way through her acting career up until kind of this current point, and she kind of details how acting wasn't really her dream, it was her mum's dream, and Jeanette kind of only did it to sustain her family financially because Jeanette took on that burden of, oh my god, my family have no money, it's my job to get us money and acting is the way that I do that. Throughout her acting career, obviously I will have to say that this book has trigger warnings for eating disorders and alcohol abuse and a bunch of other stuff. It's a really, really heavy read. Jeanette's mum got her into an eating disorder and played it off like it was normal. This book was just mine. This book just details some really horrible events. It's incredibly heavy, so I wouldn't read this if, one, you have past issues with some of the trigger warnings and you feel like it will trigger you again. I wouldn't read this if you're already in a bad place, and I just wouldn't read it if you don't want anything heavy because this is incredibly emotional. I don't really want to detail everything that's in the book because obviously there are interviews that she's done where she's kind of read some of them out loud, and also I just feel like this is a book where you should go in and just read it and find out things for yourself. It's incredibly shocking, and I just don't understand how she is a well-rounded human being at this point. That is a testament to her, and she's grown into an amazing woman. I don't want to say that I enjoyed this book because I feel like that's a really bad thing to say about a topic that's so heavy. But I love the way it was written. It was done in kind of almost like, it was almost as if you were reading Jeanette's diary. It was done in a very kind of informal way, as if she was just talking to you. But some of the stuff was really hard to read about. It was kind of just nice to see her journey from a young kid to now and just see how she dealt with that. And there was something very poignant at the end of the book where I was like, oh my god, someone finally said it, and I'm glad that she did. She basically was detailing something that was written on her mum's gravestone, and she was like, why is it we always put people who are dead on a pedestal? Like, why do we always say that, oh, they were such a good person just because they died? And I was like, yeah, like, why do we do that? And it's a thought that I've had really often, because I'm like, not everyone is perfect, and genuinely her mum was like that, and they still put nice things on her gravestone, and I'm like, why? Like, why do we have to do that to be respectful if someone wasn't a nice person in the first place? But anyway, it was a really interesting read. It was eye-opening, and honestly, it's just made me really, I mean, I liked Jeanette before this anyway. I wasn't really into iCarly. I feel like I was a little bit too old to be into those shows when they came out, but I just really adore her now as a person. I think it's incredible that she's got through what she's got through, and she's managed to write this book, and it was a massive, brave thing to do. So I would definitely give this a read if you're capable of doing that. It's definitely an interesting one, an eye-opening one. That's all I can say about it, but definitely worth a read. Sorry if you can hear licking. My dog is licking the air. Can you stop? So I'm going to mention the book that I got halfway through in September and I'm still currently reading and hoping to finish tonight, and that is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Brigid Kemmerer. Brigid Kemmerer. Don't know why that was so hard for me to say. I said that about 10 times and I was getting tongue twisted every single time. So after reading that non-fiction book, I really wanted to go on to some fantasy again. I just felt like it was the right time. I was in Scotland at the time, and honestly, the place is just full of mountains and stags, and it's just so magical. Honestly, Scotland calls to me. We met so many nice Scottish people, like literally the day we got to Edinburgh and we kind of spent our day out there. Some random Scottish dude just asked us a question and spoke to us and was like, enjoy your trip, and we were like, thanks. And we met so many amazing people. It was just magical, so I needed a fantasy book at that time. Now this is, I believe, a trilogy. It is essentially a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. I love a good retelling. I love the idea that all of these different authors have different ideas of what a retelling could be like. And I also really love Beauty and the Beast. It's my favourite Disney film. And I was really excited to see kind of where this retelling would go. Now this follows a girl named Harper who has a slightly hard life because her dad basically left her brother and her mum to fend for themselves. He got into some kind of issues with, I think, loan sharks or something is what they're perceived to be. I don't know much about that story yet. She hasn't really gone into detail. Now Harper also has cerebral palsy, so there's some disability representation in this book, which is really nice to see. And one day she sees this random guy dragging this girl away who doesn't want to go with him, and she's like, okay, like, fuck this, you know, I always do what my brother tells me, I always stay out of trouble. I'm going to intervene because no one's going to do anything about this and I'm the only person here. This girl is not going with this guy. Anyway, she hits him over the head or whatever, and she ends up getting transported to this fantasy world where essentially there is this prince named Ren. Now Ren has a curse where he turns into a beast, and essentially he has to relive a season every single time until he eventually falls in love, and essentially his guard named Grey goes into Harper's world, which is obviously Earth, and he steals girls who will hopefully fall in love with Ren and break the curse. That's essentially what it is. It's a very interesting concept. It's not something that I was expecting. What I will say about this book is I don't know where I'm falling between. I'm very 50-50 on it. On one hand, I'm really enjoying it and I really like it, but on the other hand, I don't think I love it. And I almost find it slightly boring. Like, although there are things going on, I almost feel like it's really slow at the same time. And so it's really hard for me to figure out whether I love this or don't like it, but honestly at the minute I feel like I just feel okay about it. I'm kind of liking the chemistry between Ren and Harper, kind of excited to see where that goes. Obviously it's Beauty and the Beast, so I'm kind of hoping that they fall in love and whatever. Obviously I've got about 20% left to read, so I've still got a little way to go yet before I've finished. I probably will read on with this series, but it's not one that I'm immediately like, I have to go on to the next book, I need to know what happens. So at the moment it's kind of feeling like a 3-star for me, which is kind of shocking because I have heard nothing but good things about this book and this author, and everyone loves it and the author, and I'm just not feeling it. I don't know what it is, but there's something about it, like I feel like I need more and I'm not getting it. Also, I like it. This is such an insignificant detail and people are going to be like, why are you moaning about that? But it really annoys me when the characters are like, my lady, and all of, like, the whole formality of this, like, fantasy world just really annoys me. Like, I love it when fantasy worlds can just be, like, modern day dialogue, and I like, yeah, really insignificant and really stupid, but I don't know why it just bothers me. Other than that, I do really like the world building. I really have an idea of kind of like how enchanting this world is with like the castle and everything else, so I really do like that about it. I would just really like to see this world expand and kind of see where it's going, but for the minute I just feel like it's a little bit slow and it's not going anywhere for me personally. So anyway, those were the 2 books that I finished in September, and that was also the 1 book that I'm halfway through and nearly finished with. If you've read any of the books that I mentioned, then please leave a comment below telling me what you thought of them. Did you have the same thoughts as me, or did you have the complete opposite thoughts as me? Let me know, and please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. So bye guys.